Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Today is Thursday the 10th of October 2019 and we're addressing the issue of climate change, the actors within it and any effect the whole climate change issue could eventually have on precious metal prices. This subject is divided into two videos. This first video, published today, quotes Anonymous giving warning advice to Greta Thunberg. And our contributor, property developer Brother Anthony, gives his view on the whole issue of climate change and what he believes it's really all about. In our second video, which will be published tomorrow, we shall reveal some very interesting information about Greta Thunberg, which is not widely covered by the media, and why the public are being conned with the climate change hoax. The main advocate of this theory is our very own controversially Greg. So let's investigate. The YouTube phenomena Anonymous have recently come out with a video advising climate change campaigner Greta Thunberg as to take care of whom she mixes with and is willing to be photographed with. This led us to think about a statement made by President Trump at a Veterans of Foreign Wars convention in Kansas City in July 2018, where he told the audience, quote, "Just remember, what you are seeing and what you are reading is not what's happening," end quote. And whilst Trump may have had an agenda in stating this, we actually get what he means, and thought we would apply that doctrine here, and how it can convey a message to those of us in the precious metal collecting fraternity. So, Greta Thunberg, sometimes pronounced Thunberg, is a 16-year-old Swedish girl who has recently hit international headlines for her climate change activism. It all started when she was 15, when she spent some of her school days outside the Swedish Parliament calling for stronger action on global warming by holding up a sign saying, in Swedish, quote, "School strike for climate," unquote. Soon other students engaged in similar protests in their own communities. Together they organised a school climate strike movement under the name Fridays for Future. After Thunberg addressed the 2018 United Nations Climate Change Conference, student strikes took place every week somewhere in the world. In 2019, there were at least 2 coordinated multi-city protests involving over 1 million students each. Thunberg has certainly caught the public's imagination with her blunt and straightforward speaking manner, urging immediate action to what she describes as the climate crisis. In May 2019, Thunberg was featured on the cover of Time magazine, which named her a, quote, "next generation leader," unquote, and noted that many see her as a role model. Thunberg and the school strike movement were also featured in a 30-minute Vice documentary entitled "Make the World Greta Again," or Greater Again. Some media have described her impact on the world stage as the Greta Thunberg effect. She has been the recipient of numerous honours and awards, including Fellowship of the Royal Scottish Geographical Society, has been named as one of the 100 most influential people of 2019 by Time magazine, and has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. In 2019, she addressed the United Nations Climate Action Summit in New York. So, with this background in check, let's listen to what Anonymous has broadcasted. We have read their transcript verbatim. Greetings, this is a message to Greta Thunberg from Anonymous. We understand and sympathise with your concerns about the environment, and agree that the blame lies with many of the world's most powerful corporations. However, you may want to be careful that you are not led astray by people who are part of the problem, and it appears that this may be happening. Many of the powerful politicians that you met and took photographs with are deeply involved with many of the industries you speak out against. Many of the policies that you are advocating for are also misguided, despite their seemingly good intentions. For example, heavy carbon taxes will not have much of an effect on the fossil fuel industry, aside from making their cost of doing business a little higher. The large corporations that are destroying the planet have teams of lawyers on standby for any accusations that are brought against them, and they have money budgeted specifically for dealing with all of the fines that they intend to violate. Fines, taxes, and regulations rarely actually cause corporations to do business any differently. But these policies usually do end up hurting average individuals who were never even the intended targets of the policies to begin with. This is because the average person does not have teams of lawyers or money ready for fines. In the case of carbon taxes, the average person driving their car will be the person who ends up paying the real cost. And it is highly possible that the corporations could make even more money under a model like this. It is also important to consider that just throwing money at a problem is not a feasible solution, especially for something like this. If billions of dollars are funneled into government coffers as a result of some type of Green New Deal, what happens next? There doesn't seem to be any plan for what actually happens to the money, and when plans are actually offered, they typically fall short. For example, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who you recently met with, announced a plan to use money from oil pipelines to plant trees. This does not seem like much of a solution, as many of the native tribes in Canada, who are not very fond of Trudeau's government, will still be forced off their land, which they are taking good care of, to make room for dangerous pipelines that are prone to spilling. This type of solution is not much different than the carbon tax idea. It is a small and likely counterproductive measure that won't actually address the problems with how humans generate and consume energy, but instead will just shift around more money through the hands of the ruling class. It is also important to mention that the environmental impact of war has been entirely left out of many of the recent climate change discussions. The military agencies of the world are responsible for the vast majority of the pollution on the planet. The United States government and their Western allies, along with Russia and China, take a large share of the blame for this pollution. The people who are destroying the planet have names and addresses, and they are on the news every single day, but they are never held accountable. In the rare cases where they are held accountable, they usually receive a fine that seems like a large number to the rest of us, but is merely a small percentage of their net worth. So the penalties amount to nothing more than a slap on the wrist. Protecting the environment is important, but it is also important not to let people who are part of the problem be in control of the solutions, because we run the risk of allowing them to make everything worse. If you truly do care about the future of the planet, be extremely careful of the people around you and analyze their solutions very carefully, because you are currently surrounded by some very dangerous people who do not have the best interests of the planet in mind. Okay. Now, we are very fortunate to have within our inner sanctum two of our contributors who hold pretty strong and divergent views on this issue. The one is our property developer and investor, Brother Anthony, who is currently in Kazakhstan, whom we shall interview shortly, and the second is controversially Greg, who does not believe in the climate change agenda at all, and whom we shall publish our interview with him tomorrow. So let's listen to what Brother Anthony has to say on this matter. Well, I'm pleased to have on the line Brother Anthony, all the way from Kazakhstan. Brother Anthony, good morning.
It's actually good afternoon here, Illuminati.
Well, yes, but it's morning here in Great Britain. And at the moment, as you know, Great Britain rules the waves. Brother Anthony, Anonymous has come out giving a warning to Greta Thunberg. And you alerted us to this earlier. Basically, what is Anonymous saying and what's your take on it?
Well, obviously, what Anonymous is saying is pretty clear in their statement and their video, which they released at the same time. The concern is that the people who are responsible for climate change are inexorably linked to the governments, the major governments around the world. So it's seen as a bit of a cartel situation, where my fear is that this is just another stealth tax. Obviously, governments and corporations want our money the best they can, but they can only do it so far directly. People are reticent to pay large chunks of their earnings in direct tax, so they come up with stealth taxes in order that they can still fill their coffers with our hard-earned money. The way I see this going is Greta's got the right intentions, but as Anonymous has said, she's just being misled as to the whole picture. You're going to have a situation where governments are going to tax corporations. Our corporations will have no choice but to put those taxes onto consumers. So like everything else, at the end of the day, it's going to be the consumers that are paying the cost. Now, whether mankind has got as much control over the climate as made out is a completely different matter. What I'd like to stress is this is just another tax being borne on normal people to take extra money for what seems like a great reason. But instead of having all these carbon credits and charging these corporations money, we should be doing the basics. Like they said, we should be planting more trees. We should be looking at more environmentally friendly attitudes to fossil fuels. But until you get countries like China and India on board, it's not going to have an impact anyway.
Now, in a few minutes, we're going to have controversial Greg on, who broadly takes the view that there is actually very little that mankind can do about global warming. And therefore, what it can do is really not worth the cost. I mean, what's your take on that? Do you agree with that broadly?
Well, no, the cost of planting a tree is minimal. It's come out in parts of the UK that resource groups working with schools, and that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to encourage them to plant trees, which I think is a lot better than encouraging them to take up placards, skip school, and disrupt people by picketing on bridges in London. You know, I think children have to be educated that there's more than one way, and protest isn't really a weapon of children. The children are being weaponized, and it's not a good thing.
So whilst you find laudable her sentiments, you don't like her process or the way that she's going about it then, basically?
I just think she's been manipulated. She's a very extraordinary young lady. Mm-hmm. Let's not take anything from her. Mm-hmm. You know, some people would even point her as far as sainthood, mm-hmm. because she's come out for a cause and she's very eloquent and very passionate. But I just believe if we follow her line to the very end, the only people that are going to suffer are the working people, and the only people that are going to gain are the corporations and the governments. So from that respect, I can't really support her endgame.
So you mentioned planting trees. So are you saying there should be some form of tax, but then the money goes towards planting trees? Is that what you're advocating? Or are you just saying we as individuals should take it on ourselves to find a location and plant a tree?
Well, we as individuals, then it's a choice in the matter, rather than being told, right, we're going to tax you more to plant these trees.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So are you against taxes then, Brother Anthony? Because you're a property developer, and obviously the President of the United States is a property developer, and he doesn't like paying taxes. He's admitted that. Are you in the same camp then?
Um, Not so much. We have to bear costs of running our countries. We have to bear costs for the National Health Service. So it has to be an element of tax, but it has to be a tax that you can see, not an invisible tax, not a stealth tax, and not a tax that's based on fear for the future.
That's great. Brother Anthony, thank you very much indeed. Really grateful to you giving up a few minutes of your afternoon. What's the weather like? Is it sunny out there? Because it's raining here.
Well, it's actually 23 degrees out here. The sun is out. It's an autumn day. It's an autumn day, but I'm looking forward to coming back to the UK shortly.
How you property developers suffer. Brother Anthony, thank you very much.
Thank you, Illuminati.
So, there we have it. Brother Anthony is of the opinion that whilst he believes we can affect climate change, the method of dealing with it is wrong, and that a climate tariff or carbon credit or carbon tax is just an excuse for a stealth tax, which actually hinders economic growth and people's standard of living. In tomorrow's video, we interview controversially Greg, who reveals some stunning information about Greta Thunberg that the media has deliberately hidden from us, and also points out to us why he believes the whole issue of man-made climate change is a hoax. We also get his view on whether carbon credits or taxes will eventually have an adverse effect or otherwise on precious metal prices. Meanwhile, thank you for listening. Please comment and hopefully like, and we look forward to releasing tomorrow's video. And if you haven't already done so, please press the bell sign and ensure you've subscribed so that you will be notified by YouTube when it is released. We hope you have found this video interesting and informative, and if so, please give it a thumbs up and share it on social media. Please ensure that you have subscribed to our channel and press the bell sign so that you are notified of any future videos. Also, kindly visit our website at illuminatisilver.com, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe either as a free or paying member for regular email updates and offers. Disclaimer: Illuminati Silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.